Good evening and welcome to tonight's show. This is Majority Caucus live on Multi TV, and many issues have been raised and discussed in the run-up to 2012 December 7th elections. But obviously there are key issues amongst the many topics that have been discussed. But tonight on Majority Caucus, we have taken it upon ourselves to go a stepwise procedure, ensure that we do justice to every single topic. And so I am bringing you a new meal, you can call it a special dinner, which will be captioned "Why You Should Not Vote for the NPP and Nana Akufo-Addo." And under this, we would pay attention to specific subtopics. And for tonight, we will be focusing on corruption as a subheading to the main or the parent head, if you want to call it, why you should not vote for the NPP and Nana Akufo-Addo. To help me do justice to this topic, I have been joined in the studio by Dr. Percy, a member of the Reform Party, and Achina Brentuo Benjamin, who is a member of the NDC and Government Communication Team. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you for your time here.
Thank you, Ali. How are you?
Of course, I'm doing it by the grace of God and as a result of Better Ghana Agenda. Dr. Percy,
yes.
I know corruption. The topic is, you know, it has many branches. The issue of corruption is very pervasive. Perhaps a historical perspective of corruption in our Fourth Republic, but paying specific regards to political corruption.
Well, okay. Thank you very much. I wasn't too sure, but maybe I should just go on and not go sideways, as it were. But I think that, broadly speaking, we can speak of corruption as the abuse of public office or trust for private gain. And I think that that is broad enough. It invariably involves a conflict of interest between persons who are entrusted with public responsibilities, who then use their positions of privilege not to serve the public purpose, but for their benefit, or for the benefit of people close to themselves. Okay. Now, this is, I mean, to the extent that it happens, you can see that it represents a systems failure. Okay. Now, and worldwide, I think that there's a clear recognition that if you want to deal with that problem, there are two things that you really need. You need open processes of governance, and you need accountability of the public offices.
By open process, you mean transparency?
Precisely. That, for instance, if I walk into the passport office, I should know how long it should take for me to get a passport, for instance. And I do not have to pay anything under the table in order to get it. Or if I get stopped by a policeman, okay, he would not, for the sake of a few cedis, allow me to go because my papers are not in order. Okay. But these are examples of petty corruption.
Of course.
Okay. Now, I think that the biggest problem, and I mean, when people talk about corruption, I think, yes, they know about these issues of petty corruption. But the biggest issues are the grand corruption that occurs at the highest levels of public office. Okay? And that is really the problem. Now, to the extent that it occurs, one, it takes away resources that are required for our common good, for investing in roads, etc., for investing in education, in public health, in all the areas that we require to invest in. That's the first thing. Secondly, because of corruption, investments are poorly carried out. Okay, so first of all, there's just the loss of resources. Then the very investments that are carried out are done shoddily. Okay, because people who have had to execute those contracts, in order for them to also make some money, cut back on the quality that should go into their work. So for instance, if the thickness of asphalt should be 5 inches, it could be 4.5.
Okay.
Okay? So through that, the contractor pays for the kickbacks or the various bribes that he has had to pay. Okay? And so that is the second level. Then as a result of the poor quality, okay, these investments also have a shorter lifespan. So you end up paying several times.
For the same thing.
Yes, precisely. Okay? And that is why, grand corruption or corruption at the level of the top public officers is a major issue. And not just that, it is also socially corrosive. And by that I mean that it lowers the general morale of people who are in the public services. It's like, look, why should I kill myself doing an honest job if top people can get away with crimes of these sorts?
Obviously, Dr. Percy, indeed the history about corruption cut across several sectors and in our daily life. But I will come back to you, Dr. Percy and Benjamin. But before that, the text line is open to all networks as 1760, 1760, the short code 1760. Keep your text coming. Benji, the issue that has been raised, and I must give credit to today's newspaper called The Finder, the Finder's newspaper. I don't know if you have read it. The issue or the argument or the debate, if you like, is between these two personalities, Nana Akufo-Addo, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. If you want to do a comparative analysis in terms of their commitment, the spirit to fight corruption, which candidate are you more competent? Apart from the fact that your choice will be obvious, but perhaps reasons to support your claim.
Thank you. I think that it's important that we don't allow the subject, an important subject such as corruption, get caught up in the sensationalism of politics. Dr. Percy has given a very broad perspective of the subject, and I think one musician succinctly placed it well, that in the abundance of water the food thirsts. Have you wondered why we have gold, diamond, all the natural resources? Now we have oil, iron ore, and the country is so poor. And sometimes animals and human beings drink from the same source. Many analysts have said that about 20% of our resources, which should end up developing our nation, end up in private pockets. So for us, within the National Democratic Congress, we believe that making corruption an issue, an electoral issue, it's so important it cannot be compromised. To the extent that people who want to govern us are going to take custody of the management of our resources. So to that extent, we need people who have the requisite capacity, the requisite integrity, the requisite track record of protecting national purse, and also the right proposals in terms of setting the agenda when they are given the opportunity to govern. In other words, you must have a leader whose personal integrity cannot be questioned. The party must have an integrity in dealing with corruption. And also, they must also put forward realistic proposals that will address the subject. And I'll come presently home. The point is this, The NDC over the years have presented candidates who have integrity as far as dealing with corruption. I wouldn't have to go so much back. I'll start with Professor John Evans Atta-Mills. There's yet any Ghanaian who is about to fall the integrity of Professor Mills. And that's the candidate we presented to the Ghanaian populace to vote on. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Now we have another person in John Dramani Mahama. As we speak, there is no committee that has found any adverse findings against the personal integrity of John. Indeed, anybody, even those within the opposition camp, has not been able to in any way fault his personal integrity. We have heard the fact that he led the STS deal to build accommodation for policemen. The deal didn't go through, so it's corruption. It is not corruption.
Funny.
We hope that our politicians will try at solving all our problems, and we hope that they do succeed. But the mere attempt at doing it should not be questioned. Other than that, you make politicians too careful to venture into areas that are ambitious in terms of getting resources to our people. They've also raised issues that he attempted to procure aircraft for the army. The cost of the aircrafts was higher than they anticipate. That amount of corruption. Again, you realize that these are just washing the surface.
Just to chip in, so in your view, you think the NPP is very desperate to tag His Excellency John Mahama as...
Well, let's raise the issues and get the listeners to judge. These are the main issues, and I don't think that will constitute corruption. I'll give you a significant... So we have presented a character with integrity to deal with the subject. Now, beyond having a character with integrity to deal with the issue, you look at the responsiveness of the leadership when issues of corruption comes up. Because you see, as we sit here, I cannot legislate on your potential act of corruption. I can't decide what you will do next. But I have every reason to deal with the action when it comes up to serve as a deterrent to those who engage in. And I'll use just two scenarios. Okay. When this much talk about of judgment debt came up, immediately the subject came up. I, Achena Brinto, as an ordinary Ghanaian citizen, petitioned the Economic and Organized Crime Office.
You go.
Yes, and at the time I did, His Excellency Professor John Evans Atta-Mills also called on them to investigate the same subject. I had my day before the Yoko, and immediately the Yoko instituted an interim report. When the interim report was instituted, leading members, in fact people who have had vast association with the government, I'm talking about Mr. Woyombe, he was arrested. He was put before bars. In fact, not that, as we speak today, his entire finances have been frozen. In fact, their money was paid into his ADB account, and at the time we were speaking about, the money was still there. It's been frozen. All his rural,
no access to his
I'm telling you, all his rural bank accounts have all been frozen. His international bank accounts have all been frozen. And what is more, companies that are divorced from individual personality, his company accounts, Anato and Anato Holdings, have had their accounts frozen. Now, people who are associated with it, I'm talking about the legal director of the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Asumenin, he was arrested. I'm talking about the chief solicitor or the solicitor general of the Attorney General's Department, Mr. Nikwetete. He was also arrested. Beyond that, the government instituted measures to pursue all judgment debt until its final conclusions in court. Beyond that, the government also said that any time there's supposed to be any amount of judgment debt and it is going beyond the threshold of 10 million Ghana cedis, it must have cabinet approval. The Attorney General on his own cannot do that. The government has also appointed a sole commissioner. A sole commissioner.
But Benji, the argument advanced by your opponent is that, I mean, the case is obvious. Why appoint a commissioner? Why set up committees? It's straightforward. Let's go for the money. He has taken what does not belong to him.
Of course, beyond going for the money, we need to think about the future. In the wisdom of having a sole commissioner, he is to advise government on complicated judgment debt, controversial judgment debt, and also draw the attention of government on judgment debt which has happened beyond this dispensation, going back to 1992 right down to history. So we're not just looking at the sensational issue of punishing an individual who has been found culpable. You're looking at also broadening it and putting in place measures such as making sure that some of these instances does not occur. Ali, I'm making this point for you to understand that the government is sensitive when the issue comes up. Let me contrast this issue, the attitude of the government on an issue that generated public sentiment, with another issue. And I'm talking about the Accra redevelopment policy.
Okay.
And that is the sale of government land. A policy which was supposed to make sure that government lands were put to proper utilization for the benefit of all. When the NPP came to power, not only did they abuse this policy by selling the lands to its cronies, indeed they added an appendage to the law, which is infilling. Indeed, infilling goes beyond the Accra redevelopment. What it meant was that government bungalows that were sitting on acres of land,
like the situation of Jacob.
Of course, government bungalows that were sitting on acres of land, they were supposed to just cut off the bungalow. The remaining portions of land were supposed to be used to develop structures. For example, nurses' quarters, teachers' quarters, and facilities that the whole country can benefit from. The NPP government sold the lands to individuals and appointees within the regime. Now, people like Kufuor, if you go to Kumasi, people like Jake, if you come to Accra, and any visible known NPP appointee had some. That is not actually my issue.
Benji, I would want you to hold on. Stay with me. I'll be right back after this.